And this is the intro to coaching and for KW Larchmont. And I'm going to share, and that way we can get started. And you see that on your screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, I'm the coach for KW Larchmont. I've been doing real estate for a number of years, and I still do real estate. In fact, even in this moment, I have one transaction going on. Before I got on this call, I was handling disclosures and other things. And this is a seller who actually is buying a property that I'm also representing. So I was coordinating some of that too. So, and the reason why I mentioned that is not only am I a coach in the office, but I'm somebody who's actively involved in what's going on in real estate and and experiencing the same things everybody else is at the same time. So I bring that into it. But the question is, for somebody who's a new agent, what is it that you need? What is it that when you're getting started, what are some of the things that what's a priority, what's not a priority, what things do I need to focus on, what tools do I need to use, do we have tools in the office that can be used, are there third-party resources, are those any good, what should I be doing, oh, here's a program somebody approached me about where I can get some leads, what should I do, blah, blah, blah. All that kind of stuff is the stuff that coaching is designed to help you do. Because what coaching does is it kind of helps you to focus, point in the direction. The more that you're in real estate, the more noise you're going to hear about real estate. And it helps you to be able to decipher what is noise, what is not noise, and what are the things that'll help your business succeed. Because you have to answer to yourself. And you have to answer to how you want your business to be run, how you want it to grow. And you're trying to pay your bills. And what is that going to look like? And what's your needs, what's your goals, all of that. That's some of the stuff that we address in coaching. So when you're starting this, you're starting a new business. And just like starting any business, you have challenges. First is, how are you going to communicate to people about your business? That's one of those big ones. What do you tell someone? When you're a brand new agent, it's like, oh, what do I say? Hi, I got my license a month ago and I want to help you buy or sell a home. Is that what you say? Is that the kind of things you do? And that's what we kind of help address is how do you have those conversations and how do you craft things? And sometimes too, well, I'm worried about this and this and this. And then, I discovered when I got into real estate, some of the things that, one, my fears were holding me back. And so we addressed that in coaching. But secondly, some of my fears also didn't even come true. I'd have people, I was worried that, oh, they're going to ask me about this and this. And people never ask me about that stuff. So I started realizing, okay, how do I communicate with people? And what things do I say? And how do I approach different situations? Because you're starting a new business and this is all brand new. So those are some of the things that we walk through. You may or may not be aware of this, but you generate your own leads. When I first got into real estate, nobody, and let me preface, I was at a really bad brokerage when I first got into real estate. So the great thing is knowing that when I came to KW Larchmont, understanding how great of a brokerage it is. And if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be the coach here, but I love our brokerage. I love the fact that we have people first. We have people that character and integrity matter. And my first brokerage, which didn't explain a lot, our brokerage does. So one of the things I'll let you know is, yes, you generate your own leads. So what do you do for that? How do you generate leads? And there's a plethora of ways. So that's some of the stuff that we dive into. Where do you start for learning and setting up and getting questions answered? Just like any business starting up, it's like, well, what do you do? How do you find this information out? I give an example all the time is, what if you opened up a bagel shop down the street? And what's going to happen is when you open up the bagel shop, well, who's going to tell me what equipment I need? And do I need to get licenses for this? And where do I, purchase the coffee? And where do I purchase the the baking goods and the ingredients and all of that kind of stuff is what you need to learn as you're starting a business. Oh, and by the way, the first day you open your doors, there's not going to be a line outside. So how do you make people aware of your business? How do you get them to come in and sample your bagels? And then you start to create a following where they come to you, you don't go to them. So that's the kind of things that we help figure out what best suits you and what will best be your approach to the business. And sometimes too, even in helping you understand that, it may be that you need to focus on a few things in your business, but your long-term play may not be what you initially focus on. And then that's the reason why we kind of go through, well, this is how the business starts, this is what you do, and let's see what will really work for you. There's a difference between training and coaching. And this is something that I specify in here because there's a lot of trainers out there, but there's not always a lot of coaches. And the difference between the two things is if you're a trainer, this is, well, this is how I did my business. And then therefore, this is how you will do your business. That's a trainer. They're teaching you in what they're an expert in, and then they're sharing their expertise with you and showing you how to do it. But a coach is different. What a coach does is a coach is what things are you good at? What things are going to be your natural bent? What associations do you have? What people do you know? What things are you involved in that might help you with your real estate? Then let's take that and leverage that into your business. So there's a big difference between those two things. For instance, I have a very good friend of mine who's a realtor, and he does cold calling every day. And he does it usually between 10 and 1 or 2 p.m. So even right now, while we're doing this, he may be finishing up some of his cold calling. And that's great. That's how he does his business. And he can tell you all the little things in that. And if he were to teach you that, he's a trainer, and which is the trainer you want if you want to do cold calling all the time. But if you don't want to do cold calling, that's when a coach will say, that's an option in real estate, but that may not be the best option for you. So let's talk about what your options are. What are the best things that you could leverage? I'm actually one of those realtors that I do a lot of networking and a lot of community charity work. And I'll go to network events and I can shut the place down. And he and I have had conversations on that because he's told me when he gets into those situations, he says that after 15 minutes, he just wants to go home. He's had enough. So it shows you that because of his personality and my personality, how we create connections and how we do real estate is going to be different. And so see, that's the difference between training and coaching. Training, and which is great because we do a lot of training in real estate, but training shares their expertise so that way you understand how to do it. Coaching is figuring out what you need to do for your business. There's a difference between, and our program even reflects this, mentoring and coaching. And mentoring is how something is done. So I mentioned before that everybody needs to generate their own leads. So, well, what does that mean? Well, okay, this is how you generate leads. This is how you have conversations with people. This is how you follow up. This is how it's done. This is how a transaction looks. This is how you handle disclosures. This is how it's done. Where coaching is, okay, what are you going to do? So part of it is figuring out what you're going to do and then keeping you accountable to that. Because just like a coach on a team could go out there and tell everybody what needs to be done and then walk out the door. And so everybody on the team has knowledge of what needs to be done. If they don't do it, it doesn't get done and they don't get better and they don't reach their goals. So the coach keeps them accountable by letting them know if they're making that mark or what they need to do to improve on making that mark. That's the difference between mentoring and coaching. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of some of this stuff too, because people have a lot of questions. And what I did is I figured, okay, we know how things look, but how does an agent coming in know how things are going to look? So I took multiple hours and I put together a flow chart that kind of shows you, hey, when you come into Keller Williams Larchmont, here's your experience and here's what you have access to and here's where you're going to go. So let me go ahead, because what I did is I broke the flow chart up into two pieces to make it easier to read. So at the top, Joey is our team leader. And I'll have a slide a little bit later that breaks down exactly how that breaks, how the office breaks down into who's involved in what. But Joey is the leader. So I'm the one who answers to Joey. And by the way, Joey and I are good friends. And so it's very collaborative and really like that. And then you might have heard of Sonia. Sonia is a coaching agent who's in another office, and she provides a lot of resources. So things that come from her are the additional resources that you can utilize. But I'm the one that's in charge of KW Largemont coaching. And so that's why I'm working directly with KW Largemont. Cam, who you probably already met, is with Agent Services, and he's the one that services the agents and their needs. So Cam and I work very closely together with a lot of the coaching program and what needs to happen and what needs to take place. So then you come into KW Largemont, yay! And you're signing all your paperwork and getting all that stuff done. And that's the person, Cam, is the one that helps you with that. Then we have an app that Cam has developed called Connect Team. And that will actually help you electronically integrate with a lot of things. So the app will be on your phone or your iPad or your Android phone or whatever you choose. And you can go ahead and work with that. But then also you can log in just on a website too. So feel free to use your computer as well. Usually at that point, I send an intro coaching email and just outlines a few things in there as an intro. And then you watch this video, the one we're recording right now. And it kind of explains how coaching works and what's involved in it and all the different resources that are available. And then a lot of times, if you'd like, we can just do a brief, like 15-minute call, get to know each other a little bit and go from there. So after all that, it's like, well, are you excited about coaching? Well, yes, of course you are. So then we go ahead and sign the contract. You're in a business where things are all about contracts and disclosures and so on. So we're doing some of the disclosures now. And when you're in the process, you sign the contract. So that brings you into coaching. When you sign the contract, you can see the little arrow carried. When you sign the contract, that's when we kind of open up the floodgates. And first is that I send out usually weekly emails, and that will have pertinent information about what's coming up during the week, and it'll have different resources in there and so on. Some of it you may send it in there and it's like, well, Rob, that was in there last week. That's right. Do you realize that the human brain only retains about 20% of something that is presented to them? So if we present it over and over again, pretty soon we'll hit 100%. So the idea is I even have in there stuff like our preferred inside vendors. And you're like, oh, what's an inside vendor? Good question. That's what we cover in coaching. But for instance, like we have a title rep in there and they're from Clearmark Title. So that information I try to make available to you all the time. Plus the times that we meet in there are also in there, and anything maybe pertinent coming up that coming week. Then we go ahead and we talk about if you need orientation into coaching beyond what just the intro is. But in addition to that, then we talk about how the Connect Team, that app, how it can start to get customized for you. And that will go into a little bit more into when we look at maybe what some of your goals are. And then also you immediately get access to all the PC coaching resources. So if you drop down, and I try to color code everything to make it a little bit easier, when you drop down into that, we have sometimes recorded content. And that content can be a number of different things. It can be like, oh, well, how do you lead generate? It can be anything from how do you do, like I mentioned, the GPS, which by the way, GPS stands for Goal, Priority, Strategize, and then 411. And just a brief overview of that, because by the way, if you look on the other side, that's one of the coaching sessions. The GPS happens to be the idea that you set a goal, and then what you do is you prioritize what are going to be the top 3 things that will help you reach that goal. And then you strategize, which is the S, and then that will help you to figure out the 5 things that will help you get to that goal. Then you take those 5 things, and that breaks down into your what's called the 411. And the 411 will help you break down in 1 month what is the one thing you're going to do every week that's going to help you reach that goal. And basically you record that in your calendar. So you have this big goal that you want to reach. And now you've broken it down into, well, here's what I'm going to do every day this week to reach that goal. And it makes it very, very simple to follow. And then you know if you're reaching what you actually want to reach for. The way of doing that is one of the recorded things that I share. We have those different resources in there. We also have marketing emails. You will start to get a lot of emails from me that will just have different marketing material. And it could be anywhere from, oh, how does a buyer right now compete to get their offer accepted? What's the best way for sellers to market their home in the winter? What is the projection of interest rates? How do homeowners have more wealth than renters? All of these different things that can be examples of what I send out. They're all designed for you to easily copy and paste. You can put it in your newsletters. You can put it in your social media. You can text it directly to people. You can send it an email blast, any of those things that you can use it for. So you automatically get those things. As I get them and I see them as relevant, I will send them to you. By the way, that's one of the benefits too, is that we get a lot of information like that, and then figuring out, well, what's relevant to our market here? Well, when I go through it, I can see what's relevant, what's not relevant, and I'll pass on the stuff that's relevant so you automatically know. Another one is that I actually pay for a service that quarterly releases buyer and seller guides. These things are a lifesaver because what they do, they're really good looking materials. You can send it out as a PDF, or if you print it, let me give you a few tips. You print it on nice paper, you print it off of a laser printer. We have really nice printers here at the office. So if you need to, you can use those printers, and you use some sort of binding system. And we even have a binding system here at the office. So it's a nice professional presentation. But those guides will go ahead and, as a kind of give you a hint, if you're a buyer, they kind of help you understand, okay, what is it going to be like to buy a house? What are the things you need to prepare for? And what are the steps involved? Seller, same thing, except you're selling a home. But because they're updated quarterly, it's not stagnant material. So what I mean by that is something that was created in 2001, and oh, this is your buyer guide, and oh, but it's created for any time in the market. These are not developed that way. These are developed and they're updated quarterly. So it's what the current market is. So for instance, right now we're in a seller's market, and because we're in a seller's market, well, what does that mean? Well, to the buyer, it means some things, and to the seller, it means some things. And then the guides are geared to that. So that way your clients understand exactly what they will need. That's one of those things. Another thing is that Keller Williams is part of a group of offices, and they're called Forward Wilshire, by the way. Here's some things that I'm giving you some tips that when I first came to this office, I kind of learned. And we even have our own marketing division called Forward Marketing. Well, they put together a listing presentation that you can have customized for yourself. But I struck a deal with them, and I went ahead and modified the one that they created for me that I really liked, and I made a generic version of that. Well, the great thing about it is that it's a page turner. It's very easy that you can go ahead, and every time you turn a page, it has a different topic on that page, and then you can just talk about it and move on. Talk about it and move on. It's beautifully laid out. And if you have it printed, again, on nice paper at our office and bind it, it's a great presentation to leave with people. And it is tagged to Keller Williams Larchmont. So the nice thing is that even though it's kind of generic, at the same time, it's specific to this office. So when you present it, it is coming from you, and it really has that feel like it's not just something you bought off the internet. So that's one of the other things you also have access to. And another thing is lead generation resources. So what do I mean by that? Well, you have to generate your own business. So then what are some things you can do to help you generate that business? Those are some of the resources that are provided. And those come at different times, just depending on the different times of year. There's one way of lead generation that takes place that we call them pop buys. And that means that you stop by somebody's home and you drop off something cute and sweet. And it's not really the gift that you're giving them that's the big deal. It's the conversation starter. Because 75% of your deals are going to come from people you already have a connection with in some way. Now, they may be a deep relationship or somebody you met somewhere, but you already know these people. And if that's the case, if there's any way that you can deepen that relationship, that makes you front of mind. So when anything comes up with real estate, they will utilize you first because they thought of you first, and they think of you primarily because you're always sharing real estate information with them. They will remember that, but you also have a relationship with them. So for an example, one of the things may be, I have one that has a little coffee on the front and it says, "I really appreciate you, a latte." Okay, I know it sounds hokey, but the great thing is that you can make it and you can take it to them, and it's kind of cute. And if you have a little bit of a budget, I would say you can attach a coffee gift card for $5 to it and just stop by their place. Hey, here you go. If you don't have a big budget, then make it cute. Buy some coffee beans and actually hot glue gun the coffee beans to this little piece that I send out, and then take it there. So that way it's still kind of cute, but now it's not costing you really a lot of money. So these are some of the ideas that it allows you to deepen those relationships, which will end up becoming your lead generation. Those are some of the resources that you'll have access to. Now, when we go on the other side, in the more the teal color, we also have coaching sessions. And what does that mean? Well, first is we do, and I mentioned the GPS 411, we have that once a week, and we have that session. Now that one isn't recorded because people are sharing what's going on in their business. And so then that's your information, and it's a group call, but we try and address everybody in there. If it's just a few people in there, we can sometimes focus more. If we have more people in there at once, then we go through things maybe a little bit quicker. But what we do is we try and look at what your goals are and what can help you to reach those goals. And it's one thing too, when you walk through a video and you're like, okay, I kind of get it. But then when you actually have a session where you can walk through the stuff individually, it makes a big difference. Then we also have, in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, weekly mentorship. And just like I said with mentoring, that's more the how-to stuff. And by the way, mentoring times two, those are like non-urgent questions you may have in the business. So if you were to ask me something to the effect of, hey, Rob, I hear a lot about disclosures and contingencies, but can you explain what that really means? That would be something I would cover in a mentoring session. Hey, we're approaching maybe the holiday season, or we're approaching summer or something like that. What's some lead generation tips that will really be effective? That would be something we would go ahead and we would approach in there. As one of my fellow agents kind of jokes around, she says, if you're not bleeding out, then it can be handled in a text or an email. And by the same token, I can also address those in a coaching session. Now, if it's something you need right then, and it's something like, hey, I have a question when I'm putting together this, should I ask the buyer this question or this question? You can still text me or email me, because that's something that either I can point you in the right direction, but obviously it's not an urgent thing. If it's something where you're in front of the client, and it really helps if you're texting me to put like 911 in front of it so I know it's an emergency, then I either try and get to it or I try and get you to the resource to it right then and there, because you are in that. But at the same token, you have to use your own judgment. So let's say you're showing a buyer a home and they're looking at where the laundry should be, and they're saying, oh, I don't see an electric hookup for an electric dryer. If that's not an urgent question, you know, that's something that can be emailed or text to me, even though the client's right in front of you, because that's not urgent. But if it's something where you're at the home and all of a sudden you open up the Supra, which is the lockbox for realtors, and the keys aren't there and you need to know what to do, that may be a little bit more urgent. So that would be something that you would then put the 911 on and let me know, like, hey, I need to talk to you now. But the mentoring sessions, what happens is that we have those, and then we address those in the mentor call, and those do get recorded, and then those go into the recorded library. So if you notice, the flow chart shows it goes into recorded content, and those become available to you as resources. So I can tell you the past couple of weeks, we've covered everything from disclosures and contingencies, which are in the contracts, to lead generation, to, well, do you do an offer? Do you not do an offer when you're working with a buyer and the property seems overpriced? And then even something very specific called escalation clauses, which is a little bit advanced, but in our office, because we work with a higher clientele, sometimes we have to address. And so I even address those in the coaching call, and then that's made available to people. Then in addition to that, some of the other things we have are different contract classes available, and that's where we ask you to attend. Some of those can be in our office. Some of them are current broker, Rich Bassani, who's a great guy. He actually is broker for a couple of offices. So sometimes when he's doing it, it may be through another office, but the contract for California is the contract. So it doesn't matter if it comes from our office, Rich Pisani teaching at another office, or from CAR itself, or from GLAR itself. It can come from any of those things, but you need to be in a contract class. Don't depend on coaching to teach you everything about the contract, because there's better experts on the contract than me. This is how we look at it. I am not the library, I'm more the librarian. So I will not, because there's no way anybody can know everything about real estate. All of us are learning new things all the time. In fact, about a month ago, something came up in real estate and Joey and I were both like, wow, we didn't know that. And we said that, and we had 5 other people immediately say on the same call, yeah, neither did we. And it's just the thing, we're always learning. Everybody's always learning. But I try and be the librarian where I can point you to the right direction. So there's going to be some things that I will actually say, hey, this is a great resource, or hey, go to this, and then you can find out. In that, I mentioned Cam earlier. Cam has put together an incredible website just for the agents here in the office, and that'll be in your intro materials. That really is a great resource. I go to the vendor list all the time when I need to get a quick vendor. Oh, do I need to do mold inspections? Bingo. I go to the list and we have a bunch of vendors on there. And then that way I don't even have to call or ask anybody. I have it right then and there. Another one is that we periodically offer Ignite. And guess what? It ignites your career. That's why we call it that. And the reason why we do that is because we get the fact that, hey, what do you need? And so Keller Williams offers Ignite. Now, Ignite is designed, and when I teach my Ignite classes, I say this all the time. Keller Williams has to make all their teaching materials to be national, to cover all different demographics, to cover all different types of approaches to real estate. So the great thing is that when you get it taught by our agents in our office, you get things that are very specific to our demographic, very specific to how a lot of us do real estate here. And then on top of it too, you get a lot of tips and tricks in there, people that have, let you know that, hey, this is what really has worked for them. And I will say too, that's one of the unique things about Keller Williams Larchmont. A lot of offices have a struggle getting people to teach those classes. And a lot of times they get the same person teaching all the classes. Our office isn't that way. We have a lot of different people willing to teach the classes and offer you much different insights. In fact, there's a lot of times I will take the class from somebody and listen to it, because I will have the video for it, and I'll do it like when I'm at the gym or something and listen to it, because these are experts in their field. And so when they're teaching it, they'll give you their insights, and I want to learn what those insights are. And then lastly is, hey, I'm the coach and I need to talk to you, Rob. So we have a little way of doing that, because we have a number of people in coaching. And if everybody wanted to talk to me, let's say we have right now 30 people in coaching, and everybody wants to talk to me for about half an hour, and they all want to talk to me on Wednesday. We'll do the math. That's 15 hours straight in a row. That means I don't even have time to make any more coffee or use the restroom. So that's not a very workable situation. So what we want to do is have reasonable expectations on both sides, because I want to be available to you. And one of the things is that I mentioned the idea, if something can be answered in a text or in an email, then please address it that way. And I will do that all the time. I've had people all day long today, different people ask me different questions here and there. Hey, I'm putting together this, or what do you think of this, or all of that kind of thing. And I'll respond to it because it's not urgent and no problem. But if there's something you need to sit down with me one-on-one, I'm going to ask you first, is it in something that's been addressed already? So let's say you were to say, well, I want to help you to put together the GPS 411. Okay, great. Have you watched the video on it? No. Well, first watch the video. And then first, please put together on the template what you think your GPS 411 would be. Then let's meet and figure out a time and go over it together. Because then that best utilizes both times. Then you have a chance to go through the information if it happens to be that, and then we get to go together. Same thing, if it was like, hey, well, I have a question on the contract. Okay, well, what's your question? Well, on the contingencies, there's a little section in which it looks like it could change what it can be. What does that mean? Okay, well, did you go to the CAR website and look up some of the help information. No, do that first, then let's sit down and talk about what that means. So that's even some of the times I'll point you into some of the, I'll be the librarian, pointing you to people who that's all they do is teach us and do this for a living. And then you and I can go over it one-on-one together, because then that helps you to learn. Again, I'm here to be the coach. That helps you to learn and helps you to reach your goals, and also equips you in the future to be able to find the answers yourself. But then when it comes to something that you really do need the one-on-one time with, yes, I'm more than happy to schedule that time with you. And if you want to do it on a Zoom call, usually it's a phone call, but even if it has to be one-on-one, no problem. I try and make myself available in the office at least a couple of days during the week. And by the way, speaking of GPS 411, you'll notice in the middle, there's that blue section. And again, if you want to do a one-on-one with the GPS 411, let's say that's one of the things you need, then that's when I kind of insist, watch the video. Make sure you go through that first. Then on top of it, then we can schedule a time, and then we can figure out what maybe some of your personal GPS 411 is. And by the way, our Connect team, that little app I was mentioning, can be customized to what some of your goals may be. So we can look at that once we get some of those things together, and then we can get together with Cam and figure out, well, what is the best way that maybe we can even customize your electronic accountability to reflect what some of your goals are. So that's coaching broken down in a flow chart that kind of shows you how it's all working and how we run things here at Keller Williams Larchmont. So advantages of KW Larchmont coaching, because guess what? We're not the only ones who do coaching. I'm going to be very upfront about that. And if you were to ask me, I would tell you what I feel some of the good coaching programs out there are, and what some of the poor coaching programs are. In fact, one of them that I'm thinking of specifically isn't really coaching. It's more training. They're just calling themselves coaches, and they tell you this is what you need to do, and they're a cookie cutter place. I didn't fit in very well with that because I wasn't the person that they needed to cookie cut. My approach to real estate was very different from theirs, so that wasn't a good fit. But there are some things, other options that are out there, and sometimes they're bigger companies, sometimes they're individuals. Well, what's the advantage of us doing coaching? Why are we doing that here? Well, there's a number of advantages. First is we're not a broad general coaching, again, that's doing coaching in the Carolinas, in New England area, in the Midwest, in Hawaii, although I'd like to do coaching in Hawaii. We're not doing that. We're doing here specific to our demographic here in Southern California, in the LA area even more. And so our coaching reflects that. Well, what does that mean? That means that some of the resources we talked about, some of our approaches, that's what we deal with. For instance, somebody asked me just the other day, well, what about FSBOs, Rob, which is for sale by owners? That's a nickname for them. FSBO, FSBO, for sale by owner. And I said, okay, let me talk to you briefly about that. And I'm going to talk super briefly about it because we don't see that a lot in California. We really don't. It's just one of those things that don't make that a huge part of what you think your business is going to be, because it's really not that much here. Most people in California know that they need some sort of agent to help them buy or sell a home. However, you can go in other parts of the country and you see a lot more FSBOs. So in those areas, they would focus them more. Again, our coaching is specific to our area and our demographic. But then also how you pay for coaching is a breakdown of that. Because other coaching programs out there, they will charge you for group coaching a certain amount every month. Well, what if I don't show up? Doesn't matter. They charge you a certain amount every month. Oh, well, what if I don't do a deal? Doesn't matter. They charge you a certain amount every month. Oh, well, what about, no, what abouts? They charge you a certain amount every month, period. And most of them have contracts. So guess what, sunshine? If you sign a 6-month contract or usually a year-long contract, you have to pay that because you signed a contract. And some of them, it's like, well, what if I want one-on-one time? Oh, that's a different type of coaching. Usually that's twice as much as group coaching. And again, what if? Nope, no what ifs. Guess what? That's how much it is. And well, I don't show up. Yep, That's pretty much how it is. In fact, I even have a coach, and I have my coach for 30 minutes every Monday. That's when I meet with her. And they charge me $1,000 a month for the coaching. And is it worth it? Yeah, she knows what she's talking about. And I look forward to that call. I really do. And is she available for email too? Yes, she's been available for email. She'll even, help with other things like that. But that one-on-one time, it literally is just 30 minutes every week. And when we're up at that 30 minutes, it's like, wow, the time flew and we're done. And what if I can't make it on a Monday? Well, it still costs the same. So the great thing about Keller Williams Larchmont is that you only pay for coaching for when you close a deal. What happens is that you're involved in the program. And then when you have a deal, as you know, there's a commission. And coming into real estate, you've already been taught now that it's all commission based. And you split the commission with the office. So in coaching, we approach it the same way, where when you close a deal, you split that commission with the office. So here's the actual coaching contract, because everybody's like, well, what does that mean? How does that look? And all that sort of thing. So this is a contract, and this is what you sign for coaching, and everything's very upfront. If you notice, right down there, it'll say under C, because this is what I always get asked. So I'm just going to start talking about it now. Underneath C, you'll see that the coaching is set up where it's a split. And I can walk you through all of this different stuff. But what it boils down to is that because it's Brian did an excellent job, who is, by the way, our MCA in the office, which means he's a market center administrator. But he broke it down into an example. An agent would receive a gross commission of $10,000. The commission is first subject to an 80-20 split, and then another 80-20 split. So bottom line, by the time everything is said and done, your commission, after paying the brokerage, which you would be paying anyway, and then paying for coaching, your split is $6,400. And then you could easily, in our office, actually the commission would average more around 20,000. So then you would double everything. But that's the thing about coaching, and the way we have it set up is then you pay when you actually make money, which is a much better way of doing it, because all the other systems of coaching, you're paying whether you're making money or not. And here you pay if you make money. And then of course there's a cap to it. You've already learned with Keller Williams Larchmont, there's a cap. So once you reach that cap, you're done paying into it. And same thing with here. Once you reach that cap, you're done paying into it. So it's not like in perpetuity. Nope, you're going to have a cap. Yearly, everybody in Keller Williams has a cap. In fact, I capped just this last July. And so from that point on, my commissions immediately after that, I kept 100% of my commission. So we make coaching the same approach in the same way. Now, you can also see in this, it covers some of the expectations for both training and following up and showing up and so forth. That's part in there. But I bring up the contract because this is what everybody asks me about all the time. So I want everything up front, so everything's on the table. You can see here too, at the back part, we ask for certain information, so that way we have your contact information. Another thing is that, and it may seem like, well, wow, you're asking for a lot of info. Yeah, and the reason why, and by the way, obviously, if you don't have a Facebook account, you should. But if you don't have a Facebook account, that's fine. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, probably should, and so forth. But we ask for this so we also know how to keep in touch with you, and you can keep in touch with us. Because it's more than just, oh, sign the contract and we're done. I'm the one who actually put in there, hey, can we have all this information? So then that way we can make sure that we're on the team together and we're working together to help one another. Some of the resources provided exclusively just to you guys. I mentioned the generic listing presentation. That's one of those things. Another one is helpful forms. I was just speaking with one of our agents the other day, and she was talking like, oh, I've got open house this weekend. And I'm like, okay, great. And she said, she goes, yeah, I'm not exactly sure should I just bring in a notepad and have them sign that when they come in? Nope, I have a generic open house form to sign. So it's already set up. Just go ahead and print multiple copies of it and you're good. Thank you. there was also a question on that when I had mentioned, just right now, the idea of an escalation clause. I sent her an example of that. I sometimes I'll have people asking, oh, well, do you have something that talks about property taxes? Yep, got something on that. Anything that I may have in my little tool belt, I'm more than willing to share. And so that's some of the stuff that's provided to you guys. Some of the pre-listing packages, that's some of the information like, oh, well, what do I send to someone? And I've actually put together kind of a couple of packages. One is geared a little bit towards marketing. The other one is geared towards just pre-listing, and you can do a hybrid of both. But I have no problem sending that information over. So then that way it's like, oh, I have somebody that they want to sell their house. What questions do I ask them? What I tell people is take the seller guide that I mentioned earlier, and it's also mentioned in here too. Take the seller guide, take that information, which is a questionnaire thing. Between that and that, you already have a great presentation. Do the generic listing presentation with it, print all of them and bind them. They'll do great. That's what I take a lot of times to my listing presentations. Another one is buyer consultation. Hey, well, what should I be asking buyers? What are some things, because buyers are brand new to real estate, they may not know what they need to fill out. Those are some of the things that I also share. So that way they give you, or that way you can ask them and consult with them what'll be helpful. And a lot of the stuff too, it's not like you have to have everything memorized. Yes, it's very good to be very familiar with it, but when you turn the pages, you can turn the pages with them. And we are in an electronic era now. In fact, this is a Zoom call and this is being recorded, but we can go ahead and you can do a Zoom call with your clients or FaceTime or what have you. But if you do a Zoom call, then you can bring up a lot of these resources and go over them right over the Zoom call. And then they can fill the things out on their own and get them to you. So you can even make your appointments much easier to do. And by having these resources, it allows you just to do it when you need to do it. My focus in coaching, as I mentioned, is for the coaching side of things and not as much of support. Now, yes, if I get a quick question, I had somebody ask me a question today. Hey, this property said it was geared towards seniors, but I don't see anything on here about it being a senior community. Could that have been a mistake done by the listing agent on the MLS? Yes, probably. I have no problem answering that question. But let's say it's like, hey, how do I do a search on the MLS? I've never done that before. Well, I'm not the one to show you. I'm the one to point you in the direction of say, hey, here is the help files on the GLAR website that will walk you through how to do it. And by the way, why are they so much better? Because they'll have videos and actually pictures and examples and all of that. So you will learn better going that route. Same thing with the CAR zip forms. Rob, what are CAR zip forms? Okay, let me tell you. CAR zip forms is everything that's the contract. When we do a contract, if it's a listing agreement, if it's a purchase agreement, if it's a disclosure, if it's an amendment, if it's what's called an avid, all of these different things, those are the California real estate forms that we use in all of our transactions. And those are in the CAR zip forms. And so you go ahead and log into that. And you guys have probably started picking up already that in real estate, there's multiple things to learn in order to do real estate. MLS has all the listings. CAR zip forms has all the forms and all the documentation we use. Keller Williams has KW Command, which is our all-in-one encompassing software that you can do online on your phone, anywhere you have access to the internet. And the KW Command has multiple things in there. It'll have what's called your CRM, your customer relationship manager. And then that will help you, that's your database of people, and it helps you track like who you need to contact, what you need to do to put in their information. If you want to give them what's called, we call it a smart plan, but in the smart plan, you can have like automatic texting to them. You can have automatic email sent to them, all of those sort of things. It also has where you can create different designs for different, if you want to do a social media post or anything like that. If you want to do any sort of advertising and you want to do any ads, there's a section in Command for that. If there's anything like you wanted to create to-do lists, all of that stuff can be in Command. And so that's our all-in-one thing. But again, I can point you into the people who are experts for that as opposed to answering questions. However, if you were to ask me, well, wait, I went into Command, but I didn't see a section that talked about doing let me just mention, doing Facebook ads. Well, no, to the left side, you're not going to see where it says Facebook ads. It'll look for campaigns. Oh, I see that. No problem. That's easy to answer in a text. I don't mind doing that. But then if it's like, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? Again, I'll point you to the experts. So where and when and where do I learn, different things? Because at this point, it's like, okay, we covered all this, but I need to learn, like, well, what are some of the industry standards? How do I do this? What are some of the concepts? How do I approach this? This is what's addressed, as I mentioned before, in the mentoring sessions. It's also addressed in our Ignite series. A lot of the resources provided, it'll be in there. And by the way, I also lead a 9 a.m. call. And in that 9 a.m. call, it's kind of like a group support where we talk about everything in real estate. And by the way, we talk about everything in real estate. So sometimes we'll talk about, oh, what do you do when you have a listing agent who won't return your calls and you're in the middle of escrow? Okay, here are some options. What do you do when you're trying to list a property, but it has a problem with title? Oh, people share their different experiences. So you learn and grow. Yay. But then also, what is it like when you're doing daily real estate? And sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes it's like you're running your own business and how do you do this? Or what is it like? And we share in those sort of things too. So the 9 a.m. call, I lead the call and I just love it. It's a great time and you can actually learn a lot from that too. And then also, as I mentioned, through direct communication. If it's something that can be answered in a text or an email, more than happy to do it. If it's an emergency, I'm more than happy to answer or get you to the right people. One thing I also always wanted to include a slide of in here is the office structure, because people are like, okay, I hear all these different names, but what does this mean? How does it work? First of all, every office in real estate needs to have what's called a broker. And they're the ones that you have to have a broker on record for each office. Ours is Rich Pisani, and Rich is actually involved in our office quite a bit. He'll teach a lot of different classes here and there. So he's our broker. Within our office itself, we have our team leader, which is Joey, and most of you know who Joey would be. Then I'm the productivity coach, and I'm the one that's in charge of coaching. Then we have agent services, who I mentioned, Cameron. Our market center administrator is Brian. Brian is kind of like everything to do with contracts that come in, escrow, checks, paying for the utility bills in the office, anything that's administrative, that's Brian. Then we have what's called title. And in fact, what title is that every property has a title. And who is on title? Who owns the property? That's who's on title. So our title is through Clearmark, our in-house vendor, and that's Ben and Grace. And then we have our in-house lender, Andy Christonaut. She's with Movement Mortgage, and she's a great resource to answer mortgage questions, help you qualify your buyers, all of that. And then we have what's called a transaction coordinator, Raha. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you pay Raha, a transaction coordinator is somebody who will take over a lot of the transaction. And now, I said a lot of it doesn't mean that you hand off and then you don't do anything about it again. But she will make sure that everything is filled out properly, that you haven't missed anything. Are there disclosures or other parts of the transaction that need to be addressed? She's the one who makes sure all those things are in order. And I also lean on her a little bit when I'll ask her, hey, do we have this in? Do we have this in? And she'll just let me know, oh, yep, no, or she'll do what's called even a transaction audit and let me know where everything's at on it. By the way, if you happen to use the Keller Williams Larchmont escrow, Raha, her transaction fee is automatically part of the transaction. You don't even have to pay additional. Now, do I have to pay out of it? No, no, no. If you use Raha in a transaction, when the transaction closes, it just comes out of part of your commission, by the way. I'll just let you know that. So there's no need to worry about that. It's not like you have to pay anything up front. When it comes to anything in real estate, I'm going to say, don't be afraid to ask questions. One thing, and why do I have this slide in here just by itself? It can be intimidating. And it's easy also to see, well, that person's been in real estate for 20 some years. I don't want to ask a stupid question. If you don't ask a question, you're not going to get an answer. And even then, a lot of times people have been in real estate for years find out like, oh, I didn't know that one. For instance, there's a thing called an AVID, Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure, and both the buying agent and the selling agent has to do it. And in a transaction, the seller has a set of disclosures they're supposed to give to the buyers. Well, we didn't know, a lot of us, that our AVID, for if we're a listing agent, needs to be part of those disclosures. Otherwise, technically, their inspections are not over until they get that. And there's some nuances to that, but that was one that Joey, who's been in the business for years, and a number of us on that same call who've been in the business for years, was like, oh, I didn't know that. Had we not asked that question, we wouldn't know that answer. So even if you're starting real estate brand new, don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, a lot of information. I know I covered an awful lot right now, but relax. That's why you're here. Grab some coffee and then just chill a little bit. We know you're first starting out. We know that you have a lot of stuff coming at you. You have a lot of legitimate stuff coming at you. The MLS, how do I log in? How do I navigate? The car, California real estate. And what does that mean? What about the car zip forms? How do I log in there? What does that look like? National Association of Realtors. Oh, what does that mean? The zip forms. By the way, National Association of Realtors, you're not involved in as much, just a little FYI. But the zip forms that are also part of CAR. Well, how do I get to that? What's going on there? The KW command that I just mentioned. Wait, I need to order business cards. Wait, which one do I do first? That's why we're here. We're here to kind of help you walk through it. We're here to also kind of hold your hand to a certain degree and let you know what is going to be a priority and how to approach something. Little tip. When I first got into real estate, I mentioned that agent that we became very fast friends at my old brokerage, and we're still great friends to this day. And he said, Rob, you're in analysis paralysis. I was like, what do you mean? And he says, you're trying to take in and process everything at once and you're getting nothing done. And I said, oh, you're right. And he said, you're trying to make sure also everything you do is perfect and you're not getting anything done. And I said, oh, you're right. And he was kind of coaching me a little bit at that time, which I really appreciated. And that's the thing that we're kind of here to kind of walk you through too. Will you produce one business card and never change it for the rest of your career? No. So what would my advice to be to somebody in that specific one as a coach? Just get a business card and start passing it out. And then if you want to change it, and then pass out those business cards. In fact, use it as an excuse to contact somebody again and say, hey, I revamped my business card. This new design's a lot better. Let me remind you I'm in real estate. So those are the kind of things that we're here to kind of walk you through and kind of like breathe a sigh of relief, help you with a GPS 411 so you know what steps you want to go through, and then kind of give you the checklist of, okay, we have this done. Oh, you have this as a resource. We're here to help and here to guide you. What are some things to start with? Well, I mentioned the KW command, and some of this may be uncovered with Cam, but I wanted to bring it up here. When you want to log into command, you actually go to agent.kw.com. You've been given your settings by Cam, and you set up your marketing profile when you go in there. Well, why do I say that? Well, because then anything you send out from command from that point will automatically have everything in there that needs to be. It'll have your contact information. It'll have your headshot. It will have your brokerage. It'll have your California real estate number. All of that will be in there. So you want that marketing profile filled out, plus anything that's personal to you too. The next step is to bring your contacts into command. And that is something like some people, they're very geeky and they can figure it out right from the start. Other people, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Well, we actually pay a company called Scott Leroy, and all they do is tech support. In fact, you're going to see in the weekly meetings, we highlight all the time the different seminars they have, and those seminars are live. They're not pre-recorded. So you can actually go to all those different seminars and learn right there on the fly. But they're also great in helping you set up a lot of your KW command or troubleshoot. So we've even had some people in the office that when they first came in, they had a database of around 1,100 people. So they contacted Scott Leroy. They said, okay, how do I get this into command? Please tell me what to do. And Scott Leroy came back and said, well, if you want, we'll do it for you, which really helped the agent, because the agent's like, great, that means I can do real estate instead of having to figure out how to make this work. And that's what they did. So one of the directions I am as a coach pointing you towards is, if you need help with any of that information, contact Scott Leroy. A little tip. One thing that I didn't know until I was in Keller Williams for a little while, whatever your email address starts off with at kw.com is actually a Google account. So you can use that to log in. Well, what's the advantage of having that as a Google account, Rob? Well, that means with the Google account, you also get all of the stuff with it. You know, you get the Google Drive, you get the Google Apps, you get all of that whenever you have a Google account. So that's one of the great things, that having a kw.com email address is one of the things you can use. Now, I also get asked that question, do I have to use my kw.com account? No, you don't. In fact, many of you might have already noticed that my email address, which I set up before I got to Keller Williams, isn't a .kw.com account. I do have an email address and I do use it, but the one that I've been known as professionally for a very long time has been robmarinrealty.com. So that's one I continue to use, but it doesn't mean I don't utilize my Google account and have access to it. That's up to you and how you want to approach your business. We have a lot of people in our office that they use their .kw.com account, and that is the account they use for everything, which is great. So again, that's one of the things that we can help guide you through, or you may know what direction you want to move in and you already know the answer to that. So what else to start with? Oh my gosh, I brought back the flow chart. Go figure. This will kind of help you walk through what some of the things. Again, the tech support issues, Scott Leroy. Another one is the Ignite series. So when the Ignite series comes up, you want to be a part of it, because it will really help you walk through a lot of the different parts. And it's really nice because it's step by step. So it's not like, oh, in one day you're going to learn, how do you do a listing presentation? How do you do a buyer's consultation? How do you hold an open house? What should I do for marketing? It's all broken up into different sections. So then you focus on one and you're able to move on to the next, and focus on one and able to move on to the next. And there's actually materials that you can get for that too. I would kind of encourage you to print out those materials and then take notes. The human brain, just by holding a pen in your hand, will have, I think the retention rate goes up 70%, because it signals your brain that information you're listening to is very pertinent information and you are thinking about writing it down. And then of course, the act of writing something down and taking notes even increases the retention more. So that's the reason why I encourage, if you were to take the Ignite materials and print it out, to go ahead and take notes during it. The other thing is the MREA book. You're going to hear that a lot, which stands for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And there's also even an MREI book, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Now, the approach to these books is, for a long time in real estate, people came up with theories. Oh, well, if you were to do this, this, and this should work. What happened was that people in Keller Williams, the founders of it, they said, let's do a different approach. Let's go out there and ask people who are successful in real estate, what are you doing? How do you do it? How has that worked out for you? What have your results been? They got all of that information together, they compiled it, and then they created this book. So literally, the book is not theory, but this is the principles of what successful agents are doing in the field. And when I first came to Keller Williams, one of my good friends, Chuck, said, hey, you probably want to read through this book. I literally texted him a few nights later and I said, why didn't anybody give me this book when I first started off in real estate? This is explaining so much to me. It's really filling in a lot of the gaps. So why am I being so heavy on recommending this book? Hint, hint, is probably for you to get a copy and start reading through it. There's going to be sections of it, I'll be completely upfront, that may not approach you right now. You know, they may start talking about hiring an assistant. You're like, whoa, wait, I am just starting off in real estate. I get that. But now you know where you need to go when you need that as a reference. For those of us who have the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, we use it as a reference all the time. And a lot of us have notes in there and it's really marked up all over the place because we've gone back to it and it's a resource for us. Many people in our office, they'll read through it once a year or once every other year, just as a refresher of all the principles in the book, because there's so much information in there. In fact, brokerages outside of Keller Williams Larchmont actually use the real estate book as their guide in their brokerages, even though they're not with Keller Williams. But it's literally truth is truth. And what the principles are in the book is tried and true. That's what they use. And they realize this is what's effective in real estate. So I would highly recommend reading through that book. Also, I've talked about the GPS and 411. There's a book out there that's called The One Thing, and that goes in really, really in deep in the GPS 411 and how to prioritize things. That would be another book that if you're really interested in, I would say to recommend to go through. From that point, if you want to get started in coaching, and again, why wouldn't you? Sign the productivity coaching contract. So that way, hey, we can get you in touch. Then go ahead and stay in touch with Cam. We'll start to go ahead and plug you in. Once I get a copy of the contract, I automatically put you into my database where I mail out everything. And then you instantly, when I start telling people about here's our weekly sessions, here's resources, here's things that are available, you're part of that list and that automatically comes to you. I would then say to watch, because in that list, guess what? You get a copy of that GPS video. You can go ahead and you can watch that GPS video and then start attending the GPS and the mentoring sessions. And you'll be able to have, like I said, access to that. Now, I understand everybody's on a different time frame. And by the way, when I started in real estate, I didn't have like a pile of money sitting in the bank. And so I quit everything I was doing and I just jumped into real estate. I was what's called a dual career agent. So what that meant is I had to work my old career while I was getting into my new career of real estate. And then I've slowly made the transition over. And the reason why I'm saying all that is that I understand not everybody has the same schedule. Not everybody wakes up and like, oh, by the way, I am totally free starting at 7 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m. tonight to do whatever you tell me to do, Rob, and whatever you want to schedule. That's not realistic. And we understand that's not realistic. So that's the reason why like the mentoring calls are recorded, because if you happen to be one of those people, I would, again, admonish you to be there. But if you can't be, we understand and you're not getting punished for that. Same thing with the GPS. We really want you there. However, if there's some reason why that doesn't work out and you would like to learn what the GPS is, I have no problem with that. But again, look at this flow chart. As you see, if you want to set up a call with that, then I would say, then go through the GPS, go through the different ways of doing it, and go ahead and fill one out and try and get the hang of it. Then we can set up a call, because that's what coaching is about, is I'm here to teach you how to do it. So that's a presentation on KW Larchmont Coaching. As you can see, with the help of some coffee, I love what I'm talking about because I really believe in this. Again, I have a coach myself and I love having a coach. And I think it's one of the best things that I've done in real estate, because she keeps me accountable and helps me to walk through the things that I need to do. And again, points me in the direction sometimes I need to go, just like I mentioned in here. So big believer in it. And I really hope that you come on board, because I think it's the best thing to help start your career.